Hi, everyone. A big welcome and thank you for joining us today, where we'll be premiering our film for iwill Week 2022. My name is Claire, and I'm an iwill ambassador from Manchester, and I'll also be hosting the session today. First of all, we want to interact with you. So we've got a couple of questions that are going to pop up on your screen right now. I'm going to call them out, and then you can answer using the polling button below. So, as you may know, this session is called In My Hometown. So, the first question is, are you proud of your hometown? The options are extremely proud, not very proud, and not proud at all. You can use the polling buttons below to let us know your answer. I think this is an interesting question because I think most people um, either really recommend that you visit their hometown or say stay far away. I know a lot of people who say that they live in a place but they don't actually quite live there, or they're in one postcode but no one really considers that that part is that part of that region or area. The second question is, in 2019, when asked, 74% of young people felt that they could make a difference in their communities. If the same question was asked today, how do you think this figure would compare? I think, would it increase? Would it stay the same? Or would it decrease? I think it's important to point out that 2019 was before the pandemic. And so, how do you think the global pandemic has impacted the way that people view their voice in their communities? Just a reminder that if you go to the polling buttons below, you can answer both those questions. I'll answer them first. I'm really proud of my hometown. I think there's been a lot of growth in the last couple of years, and especially being a young person in Manchester, I think it's a brilliant place to be. There's so much potential for change, and I think it's that potential that we can really do something with. For the second question, I think in comparison to 2019, I think this would increase from 74%. Very interesting. And I'd love to see the reasons why it has changed, and how can we increase that number too, right? Because that's what we're here for today. Okay, and thank you so much for putting your answers, putting your results in the chat. That's our warm up for today's session, and we can really get into the nitty gritty. So now I'm going to be joined by the wonderful Curtis. Curtis Lewis, who has given so much of his time, effort, and love into our film to direct, film, and produce the film that we're about to see. Hi, Curtis.
Hi, Claire. Thank you so much for having me.
I'll let you introduce yourself. Take it away.
Thank you so much. So my name's Curtis Lewis. I'm from Croydon. I am extremely proud of my town because I want to, yeah. And yeah, this project has just been a labor of love, and I've learned so much about kind of the different people around the UK about sort of making change in their cities, and it's kind of inspired me. It's just opened my eyes to how much people are doing around the UK. And yeah, it's just, I'm hoping that when you watch this film, you'll get the same kind of feeling that, no matter what intersection you fall under or however you identify, there's a place for you that you can kind of make change. So that's kind of what I'm hoping that you get out of this. And yeah, enjoy, really.
Thank you so much, Curtis, for taking up on this project. It was so lovely to see how much you enjoyed being a part of the conversation, and your directions. And it was just lovely to be in the presence of someone who was so passionate about the project. And yeah, I'm just so excited to see it, and for everyone else, especially the young people that got involved. There's been a lot of love that came into making this work. Just before we start the film, I think it's time to share the results of our Q&A. Let's see what you've all said. Oh, that's so lovely. 39%, very proud of their hometown. Ah, in the chat, can you just let us know where you're streaming from today? That's lovely. Very proud. 35%, extremely proud. Oh, that's really, really lovely. And then we've got 22% not very proud. I think being able to self-reflect on that is so important, because when you're at the bottom, the only way is up, right? And we'd love to see how we as a movement can help you feel more proud of your hometown. What needs to change? What needs to be amplified? And how can we actually do this? Let's look at the next question. Oh, 42% increase. That's really interesting. So you agreed with me, but actually it was quite close. 42%, 38%. Very, very interesting. I see some are streaming from Ipswich. We've got Great Yarmouth, Glasgow. Oh, Wigan! Yeah! I personally consider Wigan, Manchester adjacent. I'll claim you guys. You've got Londoners, just came back from London today. Southampton, Liverpool. Oh, it's lovely seeing where everyone is streaming from today. Very, very interesting. Very, very cool. So here is when everything gets to start. We get to get into why you're here today. But before we do that, I just want to remind you all that we have a Q&A with our iwill ambassadors who've put so much love into this film. So whilst we watch it, please put any questions that you have, any thoughts that you'd like to share, put them in the chat so that we can share them with our ambassadors and really get into why our hometowns matter and the power of place too. Okay, so if we're all ready, it's my pleasure to introduce our iwill Week 22 film, In My Hometown, How Can Young People Shape a Place? Wow, what an incredible film. I'm actually getting emotional right now because you saw in the film how smiley I was because of the expertise from all of these young people, regardless of their age, about how we can actually make this happen. I hope you're just as inspired as I am. For those who may or may not have just joined, my name is Claire. I'm an iwill ambassador for Manchester, and we are in this session in my hometown, how young people can shape a place. This session is a part of iwill Week, an annual celebration for youth social action across the UK. As the iwill movement, we're building a society that understands and champions the power of youth, where all young people are equipped and enabled to shape and lead change in their own lives and in their communities. I really hope that you got that from this film and you're inspired to take on the baton and light the flame elsewhere. I'm really delighted to be joined by the contributors of this film, such incredible young people, iwill ambassadors whose thoughts, actions, whose passion has made this all possible. Feel free to introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name's Tom, and I'm an ambassador from Glasgow. And my sort of social action interests are how young people can be involved in politics, and make a change in politics at a young age, and really influence the way that the country works. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk to everyone, and to hear from everyone else too.
Hi, my name's Lanai. This has been so amazing, this film. So big up Claire, just quickly, and everyone involved. My social action has mainly been involved with looking at equity and trying to make sure people experiencing different forms of trauma, such as exploitation or racism, can find the help they need. And I was based in Ipswich, but now in Birmingham. So yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Milan and 10 years old from Greater Manchester. I recently won the Young Person of the Year award for my social action in my hometown, Bolton.
Yes, and my name's Palumi and I'm 22, and yeah, my social action is just really like trying to empower young people to have these kind of conversations, to talk about, the power that they have within them, and to also give them the confidence to, have these kind of conversations and to take up these spaces. Yes. Apologies for the long intro, but yeah.
Thank you so much for giving us your time and also your expertise. And thank you to everyone who's been putting their comments in the chat, because you're really helping to shape this session too. You all, I'm so inspired by the four of you. I think your stories are ones of perseverance, persistence, and passion, and it comes out whether you're on the front of the BBC or if you're going into schools. And I just love to see young people really taking ownership of their voice and the things that they really want to change. And I hope that every young person who's here right now can be inspired by you and really take action from this. Hopefully you enjoyed the film as much as I do. For the next 30, 40 minutes, you're going to be sharing your thoughts with us about youth social action and why place-based change is so important. Chat box is now open. I've seen some wonderful questions come in. Please feel free to put more in. Thoughts, please do share them. I'm going to read out some of the wonderful comments as I give others to a chance to put some in. Oh, seeing all the love for the film. I've been so smiley since we started because it's so lovely to see it happening. And I'm really thankful that our film is a place for it to be amplified. Rory, you said recognizing so many amazing young people in the youth social action space. Absolutely. And I believe community is our second parent. That's incredibly interesting. Would anyone like to comment on that? Palumi, you shared a lot about how being able to do your work in Manchester has shaped you as a young person. What do you think about that? What do you think?
Yes, I think that it's very true, and I do think that, like, especially being from Manchester, I think Manchester is just a great city in the way in which you know everyone, like everyone is so connected, and it's literally because of like the high school that you go to, or like you know a friend of a friend, and I like what was said in the film. I think that is very there's some truth to that. Having community around you or knowing people around you that are ready to help you does help shape you and does help you growing up. And I think it just allows you to be empowered to do what you hope and what you want to do.
You said a key word there, empowered. Lanai, from all my knowledge about your story, could you share an example of how you've been empowered in your social action to really shape Ipswich?
Yeah, I think in Ipswich is a really good example of how it takes a whole community to maybe even empower one individual. And for me, I felt that in how the community would uplift each other. And it takes, reaching out that hand and supporting each other, because we all have ways to help each other. And, for me, especially, seeing people and being around other people that have gone through the experiences that I might have been, we can all help each other to have that social mobility. And you really see that in Ipswich. It's not just empowerment. It's not just making someone feel powerful and feel confident. It's making them actually have opportunities and to step up this ladder that sometimes you can feel for certain reasons, parts of you that you can't control, that you won't be able to climb that ladder. And when you have community, anything is possible. So yeah.
I love that. Anything is possible when you have community. Milan, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. We heard on the film about your social action, all the fundraising that you've done. What impact on your local community are you most proud of, and why?
Well, my first example is that I recently did a big Bolton sweeper to raise awareness for homelessness. And did you know 1/5 of young people are homeless? And we had to sleep out in the pouring rain to understand what it felt like. We raised over £5,000 to help young people have a brighter future. And my second example is that during lockdown, I started writing to elderly people in care homes because I felt lonely in lockdown because I couldn't see my family and friends. So I imagined how they felt. In one time, Bolton had the highest COVID rates, so we were the only town in lockdown. I have 15 pen pals, which I still continue to write letters to and visit because volunteering matters. In the future, I want to make a letter writing club so people can write to young and elderly people so no one feels lonely. Yeah, that's it.
What incredible work, Milan. And what's so interesting about the work that you've been doing is that anyone can get involved as long as you know where you live and you know what's going on in the area that you live in. You can take part in place-based change, and you can really help shape the world that you see when you just open your front door. Tom, as someone who started off doing local volunteering and then you've just had a wonderful journey and you are now a leader in the Scottish Youth Parliament, and then you just had so many highlights. We'd be here for days if I listed out your CV. Can you just share some of your highlights of working and being a young change maker at both the local and a national level?
Yeah, so I'm not a member of the Youth Parliament anymore, but I was, and I think that my main highlight was at a national level was when we at the Youth Parliament, the Scottish Youth Parliament, conducted our national survey of about mental health and young people's mental health. We produced a report. It was called Our Generation's Epidemic. That basically spoke about the problems and the issues that young people were having, and got the Scottish government, to make a lot of changes to the provision within the NHS. So I think that's an example of something that you can do if you work with other people. I couldn't have done something like that on my own, but the collective sort of group that we had with the Youth Parliament meant that we could pull together all of our knowledge and experience and get into all of our local communities and really produce something that made a difference. Locally, something that I care about a lot, my main sort of highlight, I guess, would have been when we in our local community managed to basically increase. In Glasgow, we have a youth council, and we had, when I joined the youth council, we had 2 members, and no one cared. The council didn't care about what young people had to say, and by the time 3-4 years later, we had 50, and the local council wanted to hear what we had to say on pretty much everything, and still do. With the members right now. So yeah, I think it's really, really important to sort of bring those 2 things together. It's really, really important that you pull together with the other young people. You can't do this in isolation. So yeah, those are my highlights.
That's so interesting, because I think sometimes when we share the social action that we're doing and we're shouting out about others, it can be really easy to say, "Oh, Milan, you're an incredible young person, you're doing all this great stuff." But really, it's a collective. It's the support that you have behind you. I've had the honor of meeting family members of the people who are here, and it is really, you can't do this alone. And yeah, I just completely agree. Milan, maybe I'll push the next question to you. What would you like to see in your community in Bolton in the next year or so?
That everybody's trying to make a difference and that everybody's happy.
Yeah. And I think I think that difference is the key point there. Tom, you spoke about the challenges and the barriers to getting involved in this work in the film. And I think that is so important. We can only do so much alone as young people or as organizations, and really we need the people who are handing out the money to get involved too. Tom, would you like to just talk about what we need from funders when we're trying to get involved in this work?
I mean, there's kind of two strands to it, really. There's what young people, an individual young person needs. They need support. They need a good support network around them. In my case, I come from quite a deprived area, single parent family. Getting bus fare to go to school was just was the priority, as opposed to bus fare to go into the centre of the city to go to meetings. But that wasn't a priority for my family. So I was lucky enough that there was money available through the local council for me to get involved in many of the things that I did. So I think the main thing for me would be young people need to be given access to funds to get to these places, but also support to develop their skills. I joined Youth Parliament and Youth Council, and I was very shy and didn't speak. And it took a lot of coaching and work with a really good youth worker to get me out of my box, out of my shell. And I think to go back to your question, funders need to be aware of that. The fact that a lot of the young people who are going to be getting involved in your projects won't have the confidence, and you're going to have to spend the time and the money to get that confidence out, because otherwise their voices are going to be lost. And it happens all the time. I've seen it happen, and it's really demoralizing when a young person doesn't feel that they can say what they mean. And I think, so funding for everything really if possible, but mostly I think focus specifically on those young people that really need the help to get involved.
Absolutely. We hear from organizations time and time again, how can we reach the people that we haven't reached before? And well, we've said the answer, haven't we? Lanai, we've got a question from Gabriella. How can funders better involve young people in decision-making processes without representation being tokenistic?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so funders have power, they have privilege straight up. If you have money to give to people, you need to do it correctly or don't do it at all. What Tom touched on is accessibility. If you have money to give to people that need it and you are not creating a space where everyone can access it, for example, we have a lot of young people that are shy. You should not have to become confident and become someone that uses their voice to speak in order to be heard. Many young people might have English as a second language, disabilities. There's so many different reasons why young people communicate differently, and they all deserve to be heard. So as a funder, you need to make sure that you're not just looking at equality and trying to tick a box of representation, but that you're looking at equity and that everyone can be heard fairly and equally, and also that you have the capacity to care for them, to create a safe space where they feel comfortable enough to utilize whatever communication form that they feel the most comfortable. And ultimately, this is not a big task because it should be the basic that everyone is heard fairly. So if you're not willing to do it properly, then you need to look at why you're doing it, because we can't just hear the same groups and help the same people, because so many different people need support. And often they're not getting it for reasons that are not their fault and outside of their control. So this is what I would say.
Lanai, every time you speak, you sound like you've got a team of writers behind you. I'm waiting to meet them. And
sorry that I came for them so hard, but you know.
But what you're saying is completely true, and you're not the only one who's said it. We've had so many conversations. Tom, I see you nodding, in the partnership board, in between ambassadors, even in just casual conversations after events, like why aren't people listening? And how can we accurately communicate it to the people who are making the big decisions so that something actually changes? And it's that action that we're really looking for. I want to encourage everyone who's listening to this, watching this, what action can you take from our film? What action can you take from you listening to these wonderful iwill ambassadors? And also feel free to let us know in the chat too. Palumi, I want to talk a bit more about the work that you've been doing in Manchester, because Lanai, you'll also be able to talk about this. I think a lot of the ways that we see social action, it can be a lot of the same thing. It's reports being released, it's research, it's videos, and the both of you have really adopted this creative way of working. And I think it's so interesting how we can use the arts to help push our vision and reach so much of a wider audience, people that we haven't reached before. Palumi, I'll start with you. How does the arts enable you to have an impact on Manchester and beyond?
I think being creative allows for accessibility, and it allows for people to be able to take things in different ways. And like, for example, having the podcast allows people that are more audible learners, I guess, or people that like to listen to things, to learn about, you know, the different things that are happening within society. And it's so interesting because where we filmed the video was at Contact Theatre, and Contact Theatre have a project that's called The Agency, and like everything that's there's been some news, and there's a documentary that I think people should watch about some people in Manchester that were jailed for being in a group chat. And the reason I mentioned that is because there's a whole it speaks to a larger system that Lanai was talking about how there are systems in place that are not necessarily built for people or certain types of people, and you have to use creative ways to be able to break down those systems. And having projects like the agency, or having things like iwill week, and it really allows for these things to kind of happen. And it's so interesting, me being a creative, like the allowance that iwill has allowed me to, you know, share my creativity within like poetry, or like there's a podcast called Conversations for Change, that is released throughout this week. And like I was able to write the jingle for it, and like I think I would have never guessed that would be, you know, a way for me to like express my creativity. So I think that social action is really important to breaking down the systems that are in place, so that, and creativity is what helps, that can be a tool to break down these systems. Yeah.
Wow. I think you've put it really well. And do you have anything to follow up?
Not really much to add. I just feel like you really articulated the fact that creativity is expression, and sometimes the things that we experience are too hard to speak about. Sometimes that you can't put this stuff into words. And I think art is a really amazing way to express yourself, and everyone needs to express themselves. And this is something that can be a privilege for a lot of us. And it should be a right to expression and to be who you want to be. And art is an amazing way to do this. And I think it can teach people so much. And so it's really, really important. And I think, yeah, that's why I said about accessibility, because we need to make it easier for people to use these different forms of expression, to speak up and make change. So, yeah.
In my time of being an iwill ambassador, I started being a part of creative projects, and it's been so incredible that how many people are actually just doing great work, whether that's their full-time job or it's something that they do after school. The arts, the creative industry, being a creative, it is really life-changing. And I think we definitely need to platform more young people who are using that as a medium to change things and really to get people listening, because yeah, it really does change lives. Yeah, definitely. I've seen so many comments in the chat loving the film. Thank you so much. Uzi said, I love it. Such a powerful film. Cannot wait to rewatch it later to take it all in. I'll definitely be joining you in doing that. I see a question saying, what barriers have you faced as a young person wanting to create social change, and how do you overcome it? Ooh. Maybe I'll put a little spin on that question. This is open to the entire group. Feel free to speak up. What barriers do you think there are in your area as a young person wanting to create social change, and how do you think it should be overcome in your area?
I guess I can go. in Glasgow, well, in Scotland, it's very complicated because if you're wanting to make, in my case, in my social action, I was wanting to try and make political change, and the problem in Scotland is there's so many places you can go to do that. You can speak to your MP, you speak to your MSP, you speak to your local councillor. We've got community councils as well. So I guess one of the biggest barriers that I know that young people face in my community is just who to go to if you want to, or what community project to get involved in if you want to do something. There's so many options available that it can be kind of confusing. I think on top of that, there is a lot of, especially in Glasgow, there's a lot of economic disparity between communities. There's some parts of my constituency that are very well off, and other parts that are completely the opposite. And trying to get help, or to like in my case, get around the city or to different parts of the country is really difficult, and I know it's still difficult for a lot of young people. So I think those are some of the barriers. I think again it comes back to the point everyone else has been making, is you need to find someone to help. And that's easier said than done. But I know that there are in every community, certainly in Glasgow, there are very good youth groups, and quite often those youth groups have a sort of a path to other things as well. So I would say if you're struggling with that barrier, find a local youth group if it still exists, and use that as an opportunity to get involved in other things as well.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that, to what Tom just said, because I like when he said find youth groups if they still exist, and I think that really says a lot, because I think these things have been like defunded, or like they've been taken away, and it's really changing and not allowing young people to have spaces to go to. So therefore you are then boxed in a way that you don't know what else to do. Young people don't know what else to do. And I also think that in terms of like the greater system of like social action and like how people get involved, I think it's so interesting, because I feel like you can literally just start your own social movement, so start your own social action, and it can really just take off. But if you're trying to go within it or within the system, I feel like there are still some form of politics that are being played, of like, okay, who to work with, who not to work with, what to say, what not to say. And I think that like that is very challenging, being able to navigate those kind of spaces, and especially being from Manchester. Everyone in Manchester pretty much knows everyone in terms of the creative scene, and in terms of like, I guess, even the social action scene. So then it's just really about making sure you can communicate with the right people, making sure you talk to people, and making sure that like everyone comes at it from different angles, and just being able to allow space for that, and just being like, okay, I might not necessarily do X, Y, and Z, but if you do that, that's great for you. And just allowing that partnership to happen, and being under like Greater Manchester, like Milan is from, I think it's very interesting, the differences that sometimes are played in terms of like what the city of Manchester gets and what Greater Manchester as a whole gets. And I think that again goes into like the politics of things. And I think that there needs to be a wider conversation about the connections of like differences between like cities or places, and then like a borough of a place, and how there needs to be those connections, if that makes sense.
It definitely does, yes. And even we can go deeper than just a city. So I don't live in the same part of Manchester that you do, and so there'll be different issues that we face because of you live on this side of the river and I live on the other side. And I think it's really like taking that cultural context and using it, speaking to the people who actually know what's going on in that community on how can we really enact change, because what works for all 4 nations might not work for a little village. So really making sure that you're speaking to the right people at the right times too. Milan, what do you think is stopping young people in Bolton or in Greater Manchester from being a part of the world of social action?
They might be like worried and a bit nervous to speak out to everybody.
And I think, Palumi, you spoke to that, like, especially if you're doing this on your own, it can be very difficult to know who the right people to speak to and how to speak to them, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're from a low socioeconomic background and you're working an extra job on top of education, there's not even time to do those things. And so it's so important that the people higher up are aware of these issues and accommodate to people's needs. And goodness, there's been so much richness from what everyone has been saying, and in the chat I can see that you have been really engaging with the content, so thank you so much. I have the very difficult job of picking a last question, I think. Oh, Rory has come up with a great question to end this. What do young people need to create truly meaningful and impactful social action? Make your asks. Lanai, I'll start with you. You're smiling so brightly.
That doesn't mean I'm ready. I'm just happy to be here. But no, it's okay. I can go for that. I think, what do young people need to create? I think you just need yourself and what matters to you. Young people were already equipped with everything that we need to change the world. Many of us are already doing it, and I think it's super important. Look at all of us here and all the different things we're doing. Like, none of us are doing, even though we might be doing similar types of things, we're all doing it in a different way, with a different drive, with a different reason. And if you are genuinely doing something that's important to you, that matters to your community, you're finding something that needs to change and you go for it, that is meaningful, that is important, that is genuine. And I think for young people out there, you are probably already doing youth social action. And I always think it's very important that we highlight here right now that you don't have to be doing it in a traditional way. You might be doing it within your family. You might have a younger sibling that you're helping out with, teaching them something. It might be about Black history, for example. There's so many different things you can do that are on the ground, that are real, that are important. As long as you are, and the last thing I'll say is that, yeah, just by you as a young person existing, sometimes we're going through struggles, and just us healing is changing the world. So really don't worry about how big everything is, because it's not about the numbers. We have to look after ourselves, and that in turn will help us to look after other people. And that's change right there. So yeah, I think that's it.
I think this is the perfect time to just say that if any of you don't know Lanai creates such beautiful pieces of poetry about the stuff that she's speaking about right now and beyond. Oh, gosh, wow. What you're saying about healing is so important. To any young people who are watching, I've seen your names in the chat. Healing is so important. You should never feel like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, or the weight of your experiences and trying to change the system for everybody else on your shoulders. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to just be a young person and enjoy, because really it shouldn't be our responsibility to have to do this. And so take breaks when needed. Lean on the support of the people around you, and take advice from them too. Yes, my heart goes out to all the young people who do this day in, day out, are trying to change the system within, because really it can be really draining and also just really tasking work. Yes, absolutely. And I think this is a great time to just honor the youth workers, all of the people who support, the families, the friends, everyone who keeps us running, the people who feed us after events, because it really does mean a lot. Yeah, so great. Milan, I'll pass over to you. What has helped you in your social action? What do you need to create impactful social action?
My parents have helped me decide on giving me advice to maybe what to do next. So they've helped me so much.
That's lovely. Yeah. And I think I get I'm just an emotion person. When I meet the families of iwill ambassadors, especially the ones who, oh goodness, the ambassadors who are using lived experience to empower their work, when you meet the people, the support network around them, it is so, you can see it as clear as daylight where that comes from, where that passion, where they've been empowered, where they've been told, you're doing great work. How can we make this happen? Let's do this, and let's do this together. Halloumi, what do young people need to create truly meaningful social action?
I love what Lina just said about healing, because I think that is so true. And I think that you heal yourself by the changes that you make. And I feel like your writing can be so healing as well. So what young people need, they need spaces to go to that are safe, where they can explore who they are, what they like, what they don't like. So to whoever might be listening, whoever might have the money and the funds to do so, I implore you to do that, to invest in young people, to invest in organizations like iwill and Volunteering Matters, to invest in these different organizations that are doing the work that is helping young people. So even businesses, for your social corporate responsibility, if that's the case, that you want to under it, please, I think it's really important that, because at the end of the day, money is needed for these things to happen. So again, I think we just need spaces to be built. We need youth centers to be built for young people to be able to find their voice within, and then for social action to happen.
Can I just add to that? They also have to be also have to be caring and have to be committed.
Absolutely. Nods across the board. Tom, I'm gonna let you be the last person to answer this question. All the pressure is on you now.
I think I would echo what Palumi just said there. It all comes down to, is your project funded? Is your local community, does it have the money to sort of put the backing behind you to go and do these amazing things? So as Palumi said, I would ask anybody who has the funds available to really invest it in your local community. You can sort of donate to charities, worldwide charities, and things like that. I'm not saying don't do that, but really look at what is available in your local community and invest in it. If there's not a youth club and you have the resources to start one, start one. I think that's really important, because the only way that young people are going to feel that they can make a difference is if they're given the help and the resources to do that. So yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing is, to be a bit cheesy, is the only thing. Another thing that young people really need is each other. I think we are our strongest. Each other, we are our strongest resource. All of us on this call today, we all have skills and stories to tell. And the more young people that come together, the more difference that we can make across the country, across the world, but most importantly in our communities as well.
What a wonderful way to end this. On Friday, our job is to talk to all these funders and really get into the nitty-gritty. We've started a couple of days early, but I think this definitely needs to be played on repeat, because absolutely right. And it's just now, what do we do with all this knowledge? What do we do with all of this insight? And how can we work together to allocate funding? How can we work together and make sure young people are in the room, and the right young people too, to make this change happen on a community level? So I just want to thank the four of you for taking time to speak to me today, to share your thoughts, share your feelings. And a lot of it is stuff that we've talked about before, but thank you for really collating it and helping champion place-based change in your community. Unfortunately, this is all we have time for. Thank you for everyone who's put a comment, whether it was a comment of support, a reflection from the film, or a question. All of these thoughts and ideas are going to be carried on after iwill Week. We still do the same social action after Friday. So thank you so much for all of your insights, and we're going to be taking it on as we continue to build on this movement. If you've enjoyed the session as much as I have, please shout out about it on your socials. Tag us at iwill movement. That's at iwill_movement. You can see that there's a little goodie bag at the bottom of the screen, and the recording will be in there, where you can rewatch it, as Uzi and I will be, and also share it, as well as the wonderful sessions that have happened before today and those that will be coming the rest of this week. So that's it. Today's conversation is just one of many. So everyone who's joined in today, I think my action to give to you is to find an event tomorrow, Thursday or Friday that you're going to key into and listen to. Thank you for being a part of this year's iwill Week. Please make sure to visit our website and see the full list of events, activities, and resources. Thank you so much for watching.